Okay, we're now live. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the first live show for the Graceling Readalong. My name is Lily. My pronouns are she, her. This is my channel. We are just waiting on one of our co-hosts, Nidhi. She is on her way. She's just getting set up. So I just thought I will quickly introduce the book if you are just clicking on this randomly and you don't know what the book is about or anything. So we read Graceling this month, which is the first book in the series now. I was going to call it a trilogy, but it's a series now. And this is about a girl called Katza who is graced with the art of killing, and she's used as her uncle, who's the king's thug. And basically everything kind of just takes off when she's on a kind of mission and discovers there's some bad political things going on. My brain is fried, but Bella probably can describe it a lot better. But there's lots of political intrigue, lots of plot twists, and yeah. So do we want to just go around and introduce ourselves, and then when Nidhi comes in, she can introduce herself as well?
Yeah.
So do you want to go, Bella? Yeah.
Okay. My name is Babella, and I'm from the channel Babella, and my pronouns are she, her. This was my 4th time reading this book, and I really love it. It's one of my favorite book series of all time.
I'm Jen. My pronouns are she, her. I'm from Books, Pens, Jen, and this is my first time reading it, although this book has been on my shelf for ages. So I'm glad to have finally read it.
I was going to say as well, this was my first time reading the series as well, although it's been a series I've been meaning to read probably since I was a teenager, since the book came out. It's always been on my mind, so I'm glad I finally got to it.
Same.
I'm glad you got to it too.
Yeah. So like I said, we're just waiting for Nidhi to come. Is that it's okay. So should we just go around and say our ratings and our overall thoughts to begin with? Obviously you said, Bella, that you've read this before, but do you want to just talk about your history with the book and your experience reading it this time?
Yeah, sure. I think I first read this book around, it was after I read The Hunger Games for the first time, so it was around 2012, I think.
Yeah.
And I was 16 years old, I guess.
Okay.
And, I really loved it the first time, but I had a hard time getting into it. Those first few pages were a bit hard for me at first, especially because I first read it in English and I wasn't that good with English back then. And then the last time I had reread this, before this time, was last year, so it was still somewhat fresh in my mind, and so I went into it just kind of looking for all the bits of foreshadowing and details that I haven't noticed before and all that. So it was quite an interesting experience in that sense, because I noticed a lot of things that I hadn't paid attention to in all the times I was reading it. And I love Katza with all my heart. And she was such an important character to me growing up. She was so important. I don't know. I saw a lot of myself in her. Back when I was a teenager and all that. And I just love her. I just love her, and I love the two of them together. Yeah.
Want to go, Jen?
Yes. Can you repeat that? I'm sorry. I was trying to get my dog to stop.
Basically just talk about your experience with the book. You said you read it for the first time, and your overall thoughts and rating and everything.
Yeah. So I felt this book felt so nostalgic to me.
Yes. Agreed.
The writing and the characters and the whole when we were younger, it was so hard to come across a female character that was this badass and wanted to be, just on her own and herself, and didn't necessarily need any man or whoever.
Yeah.
But I enjoyed it overall. It just felt like I was back in 13 or 14 years old. It was engaging. It was an adventure the whole way through. I did end up giving it 3 out of 5 simply because it does feel a little bit younger for me. But I feel again, if I read it at that age, I would have been all over this. So
yeah.
I was still able to really enjoy it.
Cool. Yeah, I felt similarly. Like, I really, really enjoyed it. But the whole time I was reading it, I was like, it was a funny experience because like it did feel nostalgic almost. I was like, wow, there's definitely, like, it felt like it was written in 2008. Like, I could see a lot of like signs. There was like certain tropes and certain things that happened, and I was like, that was very of that time. But then at the same time, it was also that I was reading it and I was like, this is quite like progressive for its time. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, there were certain things I was like, this wouldn't have happened in a lot of books back in the day. So it was really interesting in that way. And I definitely think like if I agree, Jen, like I think I'm giving it like a 4 out of 5 at this point. I haven't decided. I finished it yesterday. I read most of it yesterday in like one fell swoop. So I need to sit on it. But like, I really enjoyed it and I had a good time. And yeah, I was reading it and I was like, if I'd read this when I was like 14 or 15, I would have been like, like all over it, obsessed. Like, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I definitely get that feeling. I understand what you mean.
Yeah, like it was very strange in how it was nostalgic. I was just like, this just feels like of its time.
That was something that I was wondering while I read. You know, I was wondering if the three of you would feel this type of nostalgia over it, you know, considering that you haven't read it before, or if that was just something that I was feeling just because I knew this book, you know. So it's quite interesting to me that you felt that.
Yeah. So we've got Emily here. She said she read it earlier for the first time this year, and the date's fuzzy, but I really liked it. Yeah. I feel like a lot of people have started rereading it, or like reading it for the first time or rereading it recently. I feel like I saw a surge of people rereading it, like, I don't know, like earlier this year. So yeah, but yeah, no, it was weird because it's like I haven't read it, but also I have a lot of friends who'd read it, so I feel like I knew Katza and Poe, like I knew those names. But yeah,
I think a lot of people decided to read it because of the announcement of the new book too. So it was like the perfect opportunity, right?
Yeah, definitely. So we've got Catherine who said, I've owned the book for years and the series was long. Yeah, I've owned the book for a long time, like at least 2 or 3 years. And it's always been one I've been meaning to get to. And for some reason I thought it would be like, because it was fantasy, I thought it'd be like hard to get into, but it really wasn't.
It's so fast paced.
It's so fast paced. Like me and Babella were saying, I was like, I don't feel like they almost make books this like YA books this fast paced anymore. Like just straight off the bat, it was just like go, 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 which was like partly I was like, I feel like YA from like 10 years ago was faster paced. I don't know if that's just me, but like, I don't know.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree.
I feel like it's so incredibly readable. Like YA is wonderful these days and so much more detailed and rich, but like sometimes you just need something to get you fully in the story, like quick like that, and like you in, and that's how I felt about this one. So
yeah, it was incredibly readable. Like everyone was like, I can't, like, because I read most of the book in a day yesterday, which I haven't done in a long time. And I definitely could not have done it with any other kind of like fantasy book. Like I was like, the only reason I was able to was because it was just so easy to read and easy to breeze through. And like I don't mean that in like in a bad way. Like I felt like it was a positive. It just was easy to read and easy to get into. And I still felt like it was well built up. It was just all incorporated very well.
Yeah, and there's always something happening in the book too, you know, there's no moment where nothing is going on, you know,
even the moments happening.
Yeah, even the moments where they are there to build the characters up and the relationships up, you know, there's always something happening. So I feel like that helps a lot, you know, for you to get through the book quickly.
Yeah. I never felt like there was like wasted time. Like even during like the slower moments, I was like, okay, well, this is character development. This is like relationship development, etc. Which I was really impressed with. And overall, like I didn't know when I knew like she's been around for a while, but I didn't realize this was her debut novel. I read the acknowledgements and she said it was her debut, which I was really impressed with. Because I just felt like it was like so well paced. I felt like the characters were really good. Like the plot was engaging. Like, I just was like, wow. Like for a debut novel, I think it's really impressive.
Agreed.
Yeah, and I think, as you said, it was quite progressive at the time, I feel like, because there are so many themes that are kind of explored in this book that I don't remember reading about in other books, at the time. So I think it's quite interesting to go back to it as an adult, and seeing all of these things there. Because I remember when I was a teenager, the books that I used to read didn't kind of talk about those topics. So I'm trying to be very cryptic because I don't want to go into spoilers.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's not like a spoiler to say, but like I was just impressed, for example, that like they mentioned like periods, like in a book, like this was published in 2008, and she mentions her period, and I was like, oh, cool. Like I feel like nowadays that's almost kind of expected. Like nowadays, if it doesn't mention it, I'm like, but back then it was never talked about.
Yeah. And also birth control is a thing in this book.
Yeah, definitely. Nidhi just joined us. So I'll just add her to the
Hi guys, sorry about that.
No, you're fine. You're fine. So we're just talking about like our overall thoughts on the book. But if you want to just introduce yourself and your thoughts on the book and everything, like just general thoughts so far.
I'm gonna wear these because.
Okay. No, I'm wearing mine too. Don't worry.
Well, my name is Nidhi. I'm from the channel Nidhi Ready Reads. My pronouns are she, her. This is my first time reading the Graceling, and I'm so excited to do it because I've been finally meaning to come around to it. I have not decided on the rating yet. I feel like we need to have a discussion for it.
I'm the same.
But I really enjoyed it more than I thought I would, considering it's a YA fantasy, and I feel like I've grown past reading that, but at the same time, it was something new. My favorite character was Katsa. I don't know what else to say.
Yeah. We were more just talking about how like we've been talking a little bit about how like the book is actually like quite old, like it's from 2008, but like how, and you can kind of tell it that in some ways, but then also like it's also very progressive for its time, and like there's certain things in it that like you might expect nowadays, but definitely if you think about like, I don't know, like Twilight, Hunger Games came out during that time, like weren't talked about. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
No, I was shocked as well because it feels like it came out like a few years ago, not 10 around.
Yeah. Yeah, no, definitely. And this was your first time reading it, wasn't it? Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, do we want to just talk about like our feelings like on maybe like the world building? And I mean, we've talked a bit about like the world building and the writing and the pacing. So I don't know if you want to have any thoughts on that.
Not really. I feel like I'm just gonna repeat what you guys are saying.
Yeah. No, but we were just saying how like it's very fast paced, like which was really fun. And also like again, I was thinking, I was like, I don't know, I haven't read a good like YA fantasy that's really fast paced in a while, so it was kind of refreshing.
I was surprised, like right in the first few chapters, we're like going thing.
Yeah.
Like, whoa.
Yeah, it doesn't really like
starts in the middle of an actual action scene. So
yeah. I know, and I think when we did our like reading, I think that's why I was initially like kind of like thrown off because I tried to read it in the reading, and because it starts in the middle of an action scene, I was like, wait, I don't understand what's going on, like.
Right.
But it does take like once you read like 2 or 3 pages, I feel like things start to become clear. So do we want to talk about Katsa a little bit and like our feelings on her? Yeah. Obviously, she's the main character, and I don't know, she's a really interesting character. So I don't know, Brad, if you want to go, because obviously you've got some history with this character and everything.
I don't know. I think I'd rather hear your thoughts first on this one. Yeah.
Okay. Jen, do you have any thoughts?
I feel like, again, like as like if I like in the age range that I feel like I would have been when this was published, I would have like, been obsessed with Katsa, and even now I am slightly obsessed with Katsa because she's so like one of the things I really admired about her throughout the book, and it didn't change even though she ended up with a romantic interest in the end, is the fact that she didn't want to get married. And she kind of holds tight to these tenets that she has, and she holds tight to them throughout the whole book. Like nothing necessarily changes her for like romantic interests or anything like that. And she, is just strong and just, I don't know, she reminded me a lot of the female protagonists that I enjoyed when I was younger as well, like Katniss and all those other characters. So I really enjoyed her. She has a bit of a temper, but like I was for it. I was like, you speak your mind, girl.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Do you have any thoughts, Nidhi?
Well, I mean, I agree. She was my favorite character to read about, and as a character-based reader, I really enjoyed the cast of characters we got here. I feel like maybe that was expected. For some reason, for me, it was unexpected. I don't know why, but she was definitely my favorite. It's really refreshing when you get a whole cast of characters and you still end up liking the main character more. Like, I think that says a lot.
Yeah. No, I agree, and I think like she also like reminded me of the female characters I loved when I was younger a lot, and she does kind of fall into some of those archetypes from that time, I guess, but also like I feel like she was very well fleshed out in that like she is like a badass, if you want to say, or whatever. But like there's like good reason for it, and also she has like her vulnerabilities, and I was trying not to compare her to Katniss because I mean, it's easy enough with the name, but like I was trying not to, but they were similar in some ways, just in like how they would do things, but then also they felt like her whole thing, like she really didn't want to kill people, she really didn't want to hurt people if she could help it. And like her feelings about her Grace and everything like that, and just her vulnerabilities. And because you start off and you think she's one thing, and then you find out through her situation, you know, like a lot of her character arc, we won't go too into spoilers yet, but like a lot of her character arc is about like control and like having her own agency, and taking control of her own agency. And I think that was done really well, like in her character development over that, and her figuring out her agency and everything.
I was gonna say,
no, I definitely agree.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Jen.
No, I'm sorry.
No, you go, Jen.
I was just gonna say, I thought it was really nice that over time her character developed in a way that like other people kind of helped with her character development, but there was also a lot of internal realization. So you can't just say like someone else pushed her to realize this or that. Like she had her own thoughts and feelings about the things going on around her, and I really appreciated that. So yeah.
Especially how you brought up her Grace. Like, I think we should talk about that a bit more, like obviously non-spoilery stuff. I really loved how that impacted her and her growth, and especially in the world building. It was done super well.
Yeah. I definitely agree with everything that you said. And I think the interesting thing about Katza is that Kristen Cashore kind of took the strong female character trope and kind of turned it over its head. You know, she kind of made it in the right way, where the character was strong, yes, and was a badass, but she also had vulnerabilities and she had her flaws and she made mistakes, you know, which, you know, Katza really feels like a real human being, you know. Definitely. So she is a very complex character. She's not just the strong female character, you know. Yeah, she's strong, but she is a lot more than that. And I think that's why I love her so much, you know.
Yeah, definitely. And I think like you could read certain things on the surface, like if you just like said parts of her character out loud that could seem kind of, you know, like not like other girls or the strong female character or whatever. But then like when you read the book, it's just, she's so much more than those things. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, okay, she cuts off all her hair, but like that's because it's just practical. Like she's like in the wilderness, exactly. Like it's just practical to cut your hair off.
And the other thing is,
I really enjoyed it.
I'm sorry.
No, you
the
go.
other thing is, how do I say this? Katza does not fit into the not like the other girls trope at all, because she never really looks down on other girls for being feminine. You know, she not once looks at other girls as inferior than her just because they are feminine. You know, she just doesn't want to perform traditional femininity, which I think is quite interesting, you know, because she wants her hair short, but it's because it's practical and she doesn't like to wear dresses and all that. But she never once looks at women who do those things and thinks to herself that she is somehow superior to them. You know, she just doesn't feel comfortable performing traditional femininity. So
Yeah, and I was thinking about that earlier. Actually, I was thinking about how like she doesn't fit into like traditional feminine ideals, but I never felt like there was a point where she felt like she was superior in any way because of that. And like you kind of see that with her relationship with, is it Helda, who's her kind of handmaiden or something? Yeah, and who like you can tell she has such affection for, and she's kind of like, I don't get it, but like I appreciate you, kind of thing.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, because I think one of my like small, like teeny little gripes would just have been that like I would have liked to have seen her have like a female friend or something in the beginning of the book, but then I was glad. I won't get into it, but there, because it's spoilery, but there is a character later on in the book that is a female character that she ends up having a closer relationship with that I appreciated.
Yeah.
Do you want to just talk a little bit, again, we'll just talk about this in non-spoilery terms, and maybe after this we'll get into some spoilers, about like, how did we feel? Because I didn't realize actually how much of a prominent part the romance of the book was. But do we just want to talk a little bit about our thoughts on the romance in general? Anyone can go, I don't mind.
Personally, I like it when romance is introduced to any story, so I didn't mind. Did I expect it? Kind of. You know, it wasn't exactly nuanced or anything, but I don't mind. So
yeah,
I expected it too. I knew which character. I knew what was going to happen between which characters. It felt like there was the one scene where it did happen and made itself apparent was a bit fast for me, but still somehow the chemistry was still there despite it being fast, because like the book spans a lot of time. You don't see it in the book, so then you kind of think about it and it's like it feels fast, but technically these characters have known each other for quite a while.
Agreed. Like I actually did like it a lot. There was a point where I think I know what you're talking about, Jen. There was that scene and I was like, oh, this is a bit fast for my personal taste, like just in terms of what happened in it. But I was like, because I just love it to be like at the end of the book. Like I'm just like, I don't care how much time the book spans, I just want it to happen at the end. I don't know why. Like, I want the full slow burn experience or whatever. But then the way the rest of the book went, I kind of wasn't mad about it because there was some angst, and I was kind of like, okay. And I did feel like it was well built up, even though it happened a little bit too quickly for like my personal taste. I did feel like it was well built up, and also I kind of appreciated. Again, I won't get too into spoilers, but there was almost like a moment where I was like, oh, this could be a love triangle, and then she kind of was like, no. And I, again, like when you think about the time it was published, like love triangles were the thing, and Kristen Cashore just kind of decided to like not do that. Which I really appreciate.
I really love Cats and Poo, like a lot. And one of the main reasons why I love them so much, I can't get into right now because it's a big spoiler, because it's like at the very end.
Yeah.
Or I think the two things that I appreciate about them the most are the one, they communicate a lot and they communicate super well. And you know, Pooh is a very soft kind of guy, and he's very understanding, and he does his best to help her understand his grades and all that. And so, you know, he's open to talk about anything, and they discuss their relationships and they discuss the terms of their relationship and all that. So that I really appreciate. And I do understand what you say in terms of like the scene happening too fast. But for me personally, I really like that scene, because for me it's like it's been such a slow burn up until that point. And you know, you really see this relationship building and building and building, and you see Katja trying to fight off her feelings and all that. And I really like that in this point, it's like it just explodes, you know, and just like, okay, this is it. So I personally really like that scene. And I think this relationship was, again, a part of the book that I think was very progressive at the time it was written, especially one, because they communicate super well, which just didn't happen back in 2008.
Oh no, so
Yeah.
true. Like, I've never seen such like good communication between like YA love interest. Like,
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And the other thing too is that Poe's character in general I really appreciate and I really like him. And yeah, I don't know. The other things that really kind of resonated with me as a teenager, I feel like this is not the best time to get into because it's more spoilery. So
okay, that's fine. I mean, is there anything else we want to talk about before we get into spoilers? Or should we just dive in?
I'm ready.
Into it? Yeah. Okay, so if you are watching and you haven't read the book, we're going to spoil things. And there are a lot of plot twists and plot points and stuff, so fair warning. Yeah, I will say one thing, so this is kind of a spoilery, but not super spoilery to reason. One thing I actually really liked about Kat's and Poe's relationship, I kind of liked that they like got to know each other through fighting. I don't know what it was, but I was just like, I kind of dig this. I was like, this is such a interesting, fun way like to have love interest get to know each other. And those scenes were really fun as well. And you can like see how they got to know each other very well and like got close over that. So,
I love all the fighting.
Yeah, and that they didn't stop that when they got together. Like when they got together, they were like, "Oh no, we still want to fight."
Yeah, no, it's awesome, and I really like that Poe made a point of not fighting Kata when she's angry, and he made a point to tell her this is something we do to help each other. This is something we do because we like it. This is not something we're going to do to just kind of, you know, I don't know, just. Out of anger, you know, and I really appreciate that, you know, because it could easily go into some very unhealthy territory, you know, depending on how it was explored.
Definitely. I was about to say like Poe is probably the most communicative, mature love interest I think I've ever read about. Like he's just so like I was just like, wow, does anyone actually exist like this? I was like,
he was.
Like there was no conflict that came from the lack of communication. Like from other things, like their own internal like issues and things like that. And I appreciated that so much.
He was so fun to read about too. Like right when he was introduced, I was like, "Thank you."
Literally.
And he's such a fun character.
He's such a fun character, yeah. No, every scene like with him was just, I feel like elevated. It was just so much fun. I really missed him when he went. Like when I was like, I understand, but like, but I also kind of liked it because that's what I was talking about with the angst. I was like, I kind of appreciate that they kind of gotten together and now they're split apart because I don't know. I just appreciate the angst, and we love a good reunion scene.
Yeah, I love that.
I like that the book was still. Sorry.
No, you go.
I was gonna say even when he did leave for that part of the book, like the book still held up very.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely.
So well, like it didn't. It kind of shows that, like, I think it's an attribute to Kristen Cashore's writing. So. No,
it didn't suffer at all, and I also feel like with him going, you then got to know BITTERBLUE. A lot better. First of all, I saw BITTERBLUE's name on the page and I was like, oh, cute little reference to the third book. Okay, I thought it was going to be a reference, and then like she's the whole like main character. I was like, oh my god.
Now I'm excited to read about it, but we gotta read.
Yeah.
There's fire then, BITTERBLUE.
Yeah. No, I'm really excited.
She's gonna be. I'm just gonna get that one.
Yeah. Is she a teenager in her book?
Yeah.
The Bella.
Yeah, she's 18.
Yeah. She's 18. Okay.
That's exciting.
That'll be interesting to read about.
Oh my god, I love BITTERBLUE so much, you know, and I really love how this is not a spoiler, but in her book, it really explores, you know, the long-lasting effects of what her father has done, you know, and it's just, I really love how she's traumatized and she is carrying a lot of baggage and she has all these terrible things that happen to her, but she is still very headstrong, you know, and she is the one who, when, you know, at the end of the book, she is the one who never forgets her like this. And you know, it really speaks to the level of trauma that he inflicted upon her, I think. And you know, it's just so sad because she's 10 years old and she's going to become a freaking queen. So that is a lot to put on a child.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you know, she is very headstrong and she's very prepared. But at the same time, you can tell that she's still a child and that she's still vulnerable, you know, and that she's still hurt, which...
Yeah, no, I really liked her character in the end. It was just, I just found it funny because I thought she was just gonna be a little reference and then she was like in the whole book. But it's made me excited because like we're already invested in her. So like when we get to her book, it's gonna be like even more fun to get to see her like later on.
Yeah,
I agree.
So yeah. Also, I'm just curious because I felt like there was maybe a reference. Is there a reference to fire at all in this book? Like the character?
not really.
Okay.
Not
fine.
really.
Because I thought there was a scene where I thought there was a scene that possibly had her in, and I was like, "Is this a thing?" But maybe not.
Which one though?
I think they were at an inn, and it was when there was like a daughter of like a innkeeper or something like that, and I don't know why in my head I was like, "Is that like I don't know?" Because she was like mentioned a few times, and I was like, "Is this a thing?" I was like, "Is this a reference?" That I was trying to look too into it. I think I was thinking too much about it.
I heard Fire is the best book, so
yeah. Well, here's the thing: Fire takes place like many years before Graceling, so it's kind of like a prequel.
Oh, okay.
And only one of the characters in Graceling appear in Fire.
Okay.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
Wait.
And like, which character?
Is it Ol?
Ol? Oh yeah, he's older, so perhaps.
No, it's. Do you want me to say?
I'm kind of curious. I mean, we'll find out soon. I mean, I don't mind this.
I'm trying to.
It's Slack actually.
Oh, interesting. Oh, no.
Wait, the thing is, you know how in the last page of the book, Rose says something to Katza, kind of like, "Oh, it's too bad that we're never going to find out where he came from and why he was like before."
That little story, the story he told her.
Oh.
Yeah, and so the thing is, BITTERBLUE then later the book, you know, the third book, BITTERBLUE.
Yeah.
Kind of brings Fire and Graceling together. It kind of ties the books together, you know, the two worlds together. And so it's really interesting.
Okay, yeah. That's quite cool. I'm quite excited. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I was excited before, but yeah, because his story did intrigue me. I mean, he's a rat, but like his story intrigued me because obviously it's like kind of mysterious.
Yeah, because even at the time they were like, "Do we know why he's like this?" And nobody's like, no.
He's not a major part of the story in Fire, but he is relevant enough.
Okay.
The story is not about him, but he's there.
Okay, interesting. I haven't, because I only finished it yesterday. I haven't like looked at the synopsis for Fire, so I'm gonna order it from my library soon. So hopefully I can get it.
Yeah. You guys know I finished it 30 minutes before.
I love that.
I literally all my sprints yesterday. I was like, all right.
Yeah. I literally finished it. I read almost the whole book yesterday, so my brain is slightly fried, but it's all good.
Yeah. Mine between today and yesterday, I read most of it. So
yeah. I don't know if we want to talk about like any plot points, because I felt like with this book it was interesting because like there weren't any like super big surprises for me, but I only felt like because she actually set things up quite well. Like there was like a bit just before Poe's actual Grace was revealed where like she drops a few things in and I was like, oh, can he read minds then? Like, do you know what I mean? Obviously it's not quite that, but yeah. But then she twists it enough so that it's not he can read minds, but you know, he can sense things.
Yeah.
I love the fact that whenever she thought he was handsome, he would just look at her and smirk.
Yeah.
What about it?
That snarky soft boy, I was like, yeah.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say, I was reading him and I was like, this really is like, I mean, I was all over it now, but I was like, if I had read this when I was like 15, I would have been so all over it, because snarky soft boys were my thing, and there were not enough of them in YA back then. Like, they're a thing now, but bad boys were the thing back in the day. So I was like, I would have ate that up, like.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah. Even now, I ate it up. I was like, this
no, same. Like, even now, I was like, yes.
Would have been like
I love him so much. And he's so understanding too, which I really, it just really warms my heart, because he is so patient with her.
So patient.
So patient with her. And he's just open to answer all of her questions and help her understand. And he is understanding of her requests as well, I really like the bit where he's telling her, I wouldn't ask you to change just because you become my wife. And she says, but it would change me to become your wife. And he just says, I understand. And I just, it made me so soft.
What a man. But also, like, I know I said earlier, I was like, does anyone like that actually exist? But then it actually, like, when I was reading it, I was like, this does make sense, because of course his grace would naturally make him a super empathetic and emotionally in tune person, like just being able to sense other people's emotions. Of course that would make you like be that emotionally like intuitive. And like, just he was very understanding of other people, which made sense. And also just the fact they had to communicate well, because like it was only fair for him to communicate well, considering like, that he could hear her, well, not hear her thoughts, but he could like sense her emotions and everything. So it was only fair, really, because that could have become, like you say, like it could have become, if he'd been a dick, like it could have become abusive. But he's very good about how he approaches it.
He really understands why she feels betrayed, which is a step in the right direction.
That was one moment where she really exploded, actually. I remember she like really was like, I've been betrayed. And I was like, and actually I appreciated it though, because I felt like it was realistic. Like, she's 18 in this. She 18?
I don't know. I don't think we hear her age at any time.
No, I don't know. I knew she was older. I didn't think she was 16. I thought she was like 18-ish.
Yeah, I think she was around there.
Yeah, but she felt like appropriate for her age, pretty.
Pretty much. Yeah,
I appreciate. And I completely. Sorry, you go ahead.
Oh, you go. It's right.
I was just going to say that I could really understand why she would feel betrayed too, because from the very beginning she makes it abundantly clear that she does not jive with mind readers. They are the only type of Gracelings that she just despises, and she wants nothing to do with them and all that. And then not only she finds out that Poe is a mind reader, she also has to deal with the fact that he lied to her all this time, and that he was listening to her thoughts all this time and feeling her emotions all this time. And all of the things that she thought about him weren't necessarily, things that she would want him to know. And so I do understand why she would feel betrayed, and I do understand why she would feel angry, So I just felt like all of that, but at the same time, her still wanting to be with him, and, the slow path they took to kind of understand his grace and all that. I felt it was very realistic, I guess.
Yeah. And also like that was a consistent character trait of hers. Like even like later on, like after they'd fallen in love and everything, like when they're getting on the boat and she like they find out the captain like consents weather patterns or whatever, and she's like, okay, I guess that's okay, but it's a bit close to mind reading for me. like it's still something she thinks.
Yeah, and it has a lot, I think, to do with the fact that the only thing Katza ever had control of were her thoughts and her hand, And Rachel has a very interesting video on this. Rachel reads with Rachel.
I've been meaning to watch her video. Like when I finished it, I was like,
it's very good. I highly recommend it. But it's very interesting because Katza, the only thing she ever had control over were her hands and her thoughts and all that, because her body was in service of her uncle. you know, when her Grace was infected of her uncle. And then, you know, mind reading is basically taking all the agency that she has, you know, and also Lex Grace is quite literally taking the agency away from her. So all of that really makes sense with her personal conflict, you know, of just wanting agency and wanting control of herself.
Yeah, that definitely felt like the main thread throughout the book was like Katsa like finding her agency and trying to gain it back from men who were, you know, either through her uncle who was controlling her body, as it were, and then Lek who was controlling not just her mind but everyone else's minds as well. No, I feel like it was really interesting. I think it was really well explored as well. I'm really well weaved into the story. I don't feel like I was being like bashed over the head with it as a theme, if you see what I mean. Like I feel like it was well incorporated. Sorry, I just dropped my pen. Where is it gone? Do you want to talk about any other characters? Is there anyone else who like stood out to you? I loved Raffin. Like he wasn't in the book that much, but I just thought he was so cute.
I thought he was cute too.
Jen, what were you going to say?
Oh gosh, what was I going to say? Oh no. Oh, I think it's just that like I appreciate that at that time Kristen Cashore displayed a really healthy relationship. I didn't see that. We kind of talked about that, but like you didn't see that as often at the time. Or if there was healthy relationship, there'd be like a love triangle, like we said. Or this, which isn't entirely healthy either. Not healthy. Yeah, it was. We talked about it.
I just appreciated when she rejected Gideon. That was like it. Like that was the end of that. Like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Partly because of circumstances, because she left, but like, you know.
Yeah. And he was an asshole too. Like
he was so annoying. He was just like I never liked that character. I never liked that character. Who's known them for ages. And
if the love triangle didn't happen, I probably would have lowered any star rating. But like I'm glad it didn't.
Yeah.
No, like completely get her.
Yeah, she pretty much just shut
There's one last thing. Can I just say one last thing about this relationship that I really liked? Okay. One, they talk about birth control.
Yeah.
Which I think is amazing.
Still isn't necessarily always a thing in YA, so good.
Yeah.
And also the fact that, and this was the spoilery thing that I was going to say before, that in the end, she still is kind of strong in her not wanting to get married thing. You know, she never gives up her conviction of not wanting to get married and not wanting to have children. But not only that, the two of them agree to have this unlabeled relationship. And I really think it's interesting that Katsa says that she doesn't want to hold him back when he loves somebody else, if he loves somebody else. And it really led to me as non-monogamous.
Yeah. I caught that line and I was like, that is very, like, I was like, a lot of this book is very progressive for like the time it was written, but I was like, that line in particular, I was like, wow, like that was very ahead of its time.
It really read to me as non-monogamous.
Yeah. And just really cool. Like they were just so chill. I was like, wow.
And I was like, how was I ever shocked when I realized that I was not monogamous when Katsa and Joe were like my OTP?
I love it when you look back on things that you like loved when you were a kid and you're like, oh, this makes so much sense now.
Yeah.
It's so good. Did anyone else have like any other like plot things they wanted to talk about? Any other characters?
This is not a plot thing, but I just found it so entertaining that whenever Katsa would get like frustrated or just wanted to get out of a situation, she would just like take off her shoes and run.
Yeah.
I feel
or like even when she was on the boat, she like went just like for a swim in the sea or something. Yeah. She was like,
she's like, I need this time alone. And I like the part where Poe was like, you need to be at least 10 minutes away from me. Truly be alone on your own. quite entertaining and accurate, because sometimes like you just want to run away from something.
Yeah.
Exactly.
What do you guys think of Raffin and Bun?
Okay, I was gonna bring this up, right? I don't know. Absolutely. I was like, I'm not being funny. If this book was written now, they would have been like an absolute like hardcore couple. Like, do you know what I mean? I was like, I mean, are they? Like
I think
as soon as I read it, I was like, oh, they're together. I was like, that's like a thing, right?
Yeah.
Just remember that Katza's not the most perceptive person.
This is true.
And she's the point of view of the story.
This is so true.
Yeah.
Again, kind of like Katniss, like just oblivious to everything else.
There's a lot of parallels that I didn't think of.
Yeah, I mean, I won't lie, like when I was reading this at like midnight last night, when I was reading like the last 20 pages, I kept reading Katza as Katniss, and I was like, no. I was like, not because I thought they were that similar, it was just my brain was just like short-circuiting. It was just like, it read Cats and it was like Katniss.
Yeah.
It doesn't help the big of their names, they're so similar. And then also they're quite similar as well.
Yeah, they definitely have a lot of parallels, which is like why I'm like, if I'd read this after I'd read The Hunger Games, like I would have eaten it up.
Yeah.
Oh, can I say, I think earlier on I said that I think she had a temper, but I'm thinking about it now and I'm like, she really doesn't. For me, I listened to the audiobook.
Yeah, you said that she was really aggressive on the audiobook.
That's like, if you have your headphones in that scene where she comes to Poe after she learns about his grace.
Oh my god.
She's screaming in your head. Like, oh my god.
I literally jumped back at that scene.
Yeah. But like now that I think about it, it's a perfectly rational response to find out this person who's become your friend over a few months has been able to read your mind.
Yeah.
And
that's the scene too before she finds out that he's a mind reader, where she's thinking to herself that he's just such a nice friend, and he turns to her and he says, "None of us is blameless as a friend, Katza." And then he leaves.
Yeah,
no, there were definitely a few like I know. Well, that was one of the things I think I picked up on. Like, there was a few hints like before it was revealed. I was like, this guy's got something else going on.
Yeah.
But I think she was really good about that, like, you know, like dropping things in just before something was revealed. So it wasn't like, oh, like where did that come? That came out of left field. You like it was revealed and you were like, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. And the same for her grace too, you know, for the truth of her grace. That were hints from very early on that it wasn't just like she wasn't just raised with killing. Yeah,
no, definitely. Yeah. No, it's definitely well built into the story. Like, again, it didn't feel shocking, but I wasn't going into this book for like a plot twist, so everything felt like well built up.
Yeah, and I sorry.
Go ahead.
And I personally feel like this book is a lot more like, I don't know if it's too sophisticated to say character study, but it's a very character-driven book. And it's a lot more about Katza searching her agency than it is about like getting with Poe or bringing down Lek or anything else, you know. So
no, definitely, because it's like it's fast-paced, which initially, whenever I read fast-paced books, I always initially think they're like plot books, but they're really not. Like this isn't. Like, it is fast-paced, but it very much is about Katza and like her journey and like where that takes her. And I did enjoy that.
So did I.
Do you want to go, Jen?
Oh,
sorry. I thought you were saying something.
I'm pretty sure I forget. I forgot again what I was going to say, so that's fine.
Did you want to say anything, Nidhi?
Yeah.
I'm just like agreeing with you guys because I feel like you guys know a lot more about what this series is like going towards. Well, I clearly didn't even know.
I mean, I didn't. Like, I went into this and I don't really know where it's going. I've heard about it a lot over the years because I have a lot of friends who've like really loved it, and so I've heard like Katza and Poe a lot. I don't actually know much about what's going on in the rest of it.
I didn't even know the names. I just knew it was about like a world where people are graced with certain abilities, and
Same.
Paul is a girl who can kill people. That's all I knew. So,
but it's so much more than that, you know?
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah.
Definitely.
I'm very curious to see what you think about the other two books. Like, I'm very curious to find out if any of you will agree with me, because Fire is typically the book, like most people's favorite out of the series. You know, it's the highest rated on Goodreads.
Yeah.
But it's actually my least favorite.
Okay.
And I'm really curious to see if any of you will agree with me.
I don't know. I do typically like middle books, but then it's not like a middle book. It's like a prequel.
Yeah.
I don't know. Wait, I'm curious, Bella. What's your favorite Hunger Games book? I can't remember.
What's my favorite Hunger Games book? Well, it's difficult to pick one because every single time I reread them, I have a different favorite.
Okay,
well, I would say right now, my favorite is Mockingjay.
Okay, no. I was curious because I was like, if we agree on favorite Hunger Games book, then I mean, not that they're not that similar, but I was just like curious. I was like, if our tastes aligned, maybe they would align on this.
But most of my rereads, my favorite was the first one. Right now, I think my favorite is Mockingjay.
Interesting, because the first Hunger Games book is my least favorite. Just because it's so, every time I just read it, it's very simple, and I read it and I'm like, I just feel like the characters aren't very well. Anyway, we're getting into the Hunger Games.
I need to reread it. We could do another read along for that.
Yeah, I mean, I did one earlier this. I do one every year. I did an actual read along earlier this year before Ballad came out, but then I reread it in my own time pretty much every year anyway.
I love that for you.
Yeah, it's my favorite books. They're like they're my comfort reads, which makes no sense because they're very dark and depressing.
Wow. I'm the same, honestly.
I don't know what, like, when I tell people that, they're like, what?
I feel like nostalgia again plays a huge factor into that. So
no, it's mostly nostalgia, and just also I know exactly what's going to happen. I know exactly who the characters are. It's just very easy.
It's very familiar.
But I also feel like, I'll try and circle it back, but like I do feel like this has like rereadability as well, Graceling. Like I could see myself rereading it. I think it'll be fun because then you'll be able to like pick up on a lot of the hints, because I could tell there are a lot of hints going along, but I may not have recognized them all.
Yeah, and even a bit, there's like a few hints of things that are going to happen in future books in the series too. Yeah, and so it was really fun going back to it now that I have read the entire series, you know, because I picked up on a few things that I hadn't before. And I really liked reading about Gideon in this first book, having read BITTERBLUE. Because these characters all show up in BITTERBLUE, and it's just very fascinating to read them now, as opposed to who they are 8 years later during the third book. Because all of them grew such a lot. Like, they grew a lot, and they changed a lot, but at the same time, a lot of things about them like stay the same, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Do we get all of them in BITTERBLUE? Do they all come back?
Yeah.
Oh.
Like, some of them have more page time than others, but all of them show up again, including Ban and Raffen.
Ooh, okay.
Excited for that.
Yeah.
I'm
and
excited.
I really love Raffen and Kat's friendship and their relationship.
That's so cute.
Yeah, and also BITTERBLUE and Peru as well, you know. It just really broke my heart, the fact that BITTERBLUE was scared of men.
Yeah. I mean,
Right.
I'm really intrigued to see her like book and like that exploration of trauma, because I always eat that stuff up. Like, I don't know, I find explorations of trauma really interesting. So I'm excited to see that.
Yeah. I feel like
this is very interesting too. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I feel like it'll be especially interesting because we see her at 10 years old in this book, and I feel like maybe she kind of, for the situation she was in and for the age she was, like the trauma was put on hold for the time being. because everything was happening so much. I mean, obviously, of course, she still probably felt emotions, but we don't see much of that. So I think it'll be interesting to see that later on.
I felt like her reactions were like very realistic, like for her age and for like what was happening, like because so much was happening that I actually felt like her being quite like calm and just very like taking it all in her stride was very realistic, like for her age.
But also not trusting, because that shows what just happened. Like,
pardon?
Like they didn't, like she didn't trust everyone in the beginning.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like it all felt realistic.
Yeah, for sure.
To me, and I mean, she felt quite mature for her age. No, I was just gonna say she felt mature for her age, but again, considering all she's been through, like she would be.
Yeah. But it's also quite interesting, I think, because it's not only her trauma, you know, because like everyone was affected by
that's a whole country. That's a whole country that's like been traumatized. Yeah.
And like not only hypnotized, but we know that he hurt animals and people. So like he used his grace to physically injure people and to do very awful things to people. And so it's very interesting going to BITTERBLUE because it's not only her dealing with the trauma, but also her being the queen of these people who also dealt with the same trauma or worse, you know. So
and the responsibility to bring them back from that like enormous. But can I just say, on the topic of how he abused animals and stuff, the one thing I didn't like about Katza was how he treated the horse.
I was gonna say, like, okay, listen.
Like, everyone around her is saying that, but she doesn't care.
For context, like I was like a bit of a horse girl growing up, and this is my general thing in fantasy books. Like, not anymore. Like I'm fine. I don't do that anymore. But like when I was I don't do that anymore. But when I was a little kid, I loved horses. I was that kid in class. But like I noticed it in fantasy books. I'm like, they just like don't care about their horses. And I'm like, if you were like riding the horse all day, like surely you'd care a bit more. Like
it's like she thinks the horse is also grazed.
Yeah, and everyone around her is like, "You're gonna kill the horse."
She's just like, "I don't care."
Ride it into the ground.
Yeah. And then the scene with Poe too, that was terrible. And
well, it was just the bit where she was like, "Oh, shall I like kill the horse and skin it?" I was like, "Okay." I got it from a survival perspective. Like I got it, but I was still like, "Oh, damn."
Yeah, but I was glad that she ended up being glad that she wouldn't have to kill the horse. I was like, okay. But the thing that I wanted to ask you all about is, what did you think about Poe getting blind? And
I mean, I'm sure I have more thoughts when other people have said stuff, but I appreciated it just from the simple fact that so often in fantasy books, stuff like that happens. Like he fell in a river and a horse fell on top of him, and like that stuff like that happens, and there's like no permanent lasting injuries, and you're like, really? Whereas it felt like I was like, no, like he would have a lasting injury like from that. So that was my initial reaction to it. I don't know if anyone else wants to talk about it.
I agree. That like you said, often in fantasy, they just like they either continue on in battle even after having been stabbed like 10 times, or like I don't know, anything else, and they usually end up being okay. But I appreciated how real it was, and also how it ended up playing into his grace as well. It was really, like it flowed quite well. I mean, obviously feel bad for him and that grief, and I can't imagine the grief that he went through all those months by himself after the fact and not having anyone with him.
Especially because it was so he says that he has a weakness for beautiful sights, and he's always talking about beautiful sights and beautiful things and all that. So
yeah, I was just shocked because I didn't you can't. Yeah, I was really shocked at the lengths that would happen to go there. But also, really quickly, I have to leave at like soon because I thought this would end at 2. So I'm sorry that happened.
No, you're good. Just leave when you have to leave. Maybe there's no. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I'm sure we'll probably wrap up soon, but just go when you have to go. That's no problem.
Okay.
But yeah, no, I think it played well into his grace. I mean, like, it made sense why other people didn't notice, because he was able to obviously sense everything so much, so he was able to move around the world quite easily. But yeah,
and I think it's quite interesting because even though he could still go around the road, you know, because of his grace, but at the same time, it was not the same thing as having his sight.
No, absolutely.
So he could do things, and but he had to adapt, you know, to a disability. Because I saw I think Kristen Cashore published a note on a more recent edition of Graceling saying that she learned a lot through the years and all that, and she grew a lot as a person, and, you know, she got some critiques that she really took to heart. And she mentions the fact that when she wrote Graceling, she didn't know of the trope of the disabled character who just magically gets cured of the disability. And that many people read Graceling like that.
Right.
And I can definitely understand that, you know, because he still goes around the road fairly easily, you know, given the circumstances. But at the same time, he never really gets his sight back, and that is something that is just gone, you know, when he has to deal with the grief of that, and he has to learn how to walk around the road in a different manner and to adapt himself to this new disability and all that. And it's quite interesting because I think at the time she wrote BITTERBLUE, she was more aware of this entire thing. And so you can really see her writing into the book some other instances of, you know, post-blindness making itself apparent.
Yeah.
And, you know, the ways that it actually affected his life and all that. So I just thought that was something that was worth pointing out.
Yeah, definitely.
Of course. Yeah, it's not less devastating, I feel like. Like there's he adapts, obviously, and is able to live, but it's still a loss. So
yeah. I don't know if, like, when I was reading it, I was like, I mean, I'm not the person to be able to comment on whether it was like good representation or not. And I think if people had a problem with it, that's completely valid. Like, I can see how people would read that and have an issue with it. But I'm glad she has taken that into account and addressed it and everything like that. Because obviously there aren't a lot of disabled characters, like, still in books generally. So
yeah, I think that's why I thought it was worth pointing out, because it's like you said, I'm not the person to say whether or not this representation was good representation, you know. And even though I don't think his life is the same after he gets blind, I can definitely see what, like, the criticisms that people gave the book, you know, I definitely understand that, you know, and I think it's completely valid, and I think it's in people's rights to feel that way, you know, especially when it's such a reoccurring trope. And I'm just like, I'm very thankful that Kristen Cashore actually addressed it, you know, and she didn't pull a Rainbow Rowell, you know, she actually addressed her mistake, and she worked to try to make it better in the next books in the series, you know. So yeah, I really appreciated that.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know her that well. I haven't followed her, but she does seem to at least be fairly conscientious of, like, what she's doing. And yeah, there's a lot of authors who did write stuff. Obviously, like, you know, there's authors, I imagine, who would have been like, well, I wrote that a long time ago before discussions of this were had, so blah, 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 blah. But, like, it's still not an excuse. And there are a lot of authors who do that, or, like, just don't address it because they're like, well, I wrote that in 2008 when it wasn't, we didn't talk about this. And it's like, yeah, but this doesn't make it okay.
Yeah, exactly. And she seems to be a very conscientious person, because I think it's not very common in fantasy books to have the characters kind of critiquing monarchy so openly.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, usually it's like, oh, we just have to put a better person on the throne and the problems will solve themselves, will fix themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And I just feel like she takes it a bit further, than other YA fantasies in this aspect.
There's like, I mean, we've been talking for like over an hour. Like, there's a lot I feel like you can unpack with it, and I feel like she's very like, I mean, I say that just because I feel like there's a lot you can unpack with the book, and there's like a lot to discuss, and I feel like it felt like when I was reading it, she put a lot of thought into the book, and in terms of like talking about like gender and like healthy relationships and having agency, and like how societally like men have the power to like have the power to control women systemically and stuff like that. Like, I felt like that was all in the book, whilst it also was like a fun adventure fantasy story. Like, I don't know, I think the way it was all weaved together was really well done.
Yeah. I'm glad we talked about all these things. I think I didn't pick up on all those things, and I feel like I have for it. I feel like this is the 4-star read for me.
Yeah.
Like, just through this discussion. But we've had it, because like sometimes you don't pick up on stuff, and it takes other people to just like, that's why discussion is so important, I think, and fun. So
no, definitely. And like, I always try and like go and watch at least some reviews for books after I've read them, whether I liked them or disliked them, just to like figure out my thoughts on certain things. And I was the same, and like I read this and I was like I was like, I know if I'd read this when I was younger, it would have been absolutely like 5 stars. I still don't know if it's quite 5 stars, but that might be my reading slump. But I definitely think it's like a 4 to a 4.5 stars, because like there's a lot I appreciate it, and most of my like gripes, like little gripes, are very small things. No shade to Poe. The Wildcat nickname was a little cringe for me. It was a little cringe. I was like, I could have done without it.
And I was listening to the audiobook, and then there would just be this man saying "Catser, Wildcat," and I was like, please don't, please don't.
I just could have done without it,
Oh yeah, sure.
Also, I can think of Wildcats now without High School Musical. It's just
I know, literally.
No.
I got it, but I was like, I just don't like like pet nicknames within couples. I'm just like,
me too.
No.
Like, can you not, please?
Yeah, like the only time I ever like, sometimes some are okay, and most of the time I'm only okay with it if it's done in a sarcastic kind of way, like where they don't really mean it, they're just doing it to be like annoying. So yeah, is there anything? Oh my gosh. That's like my edition of the Hunger Games. Like, that's like my edition of Hunger Games.
It's so pretty.
I was like, can someone
I
please stop
it. Or like my edition of any of my Hunger Games books, or like Ballad. That's what mine look like.
Yeah,
just tabbed to hell.
This was one of the first time I decided to tab a book, and it was just a lot.
Yeah. I had to stop myself when I did the reread of the Hunger Games trilogy, where I tabbed them, because I literally could have tabbed like something on every page. I had to be like, no, like you need to just you need to just tab the really important stuff and like leave the rest of it.
It's hard when you love something so much. It's like, but I love all of it.
I know.
Yeah, everything's important.
Yeah, I can definitely see why this series is like, I definitely think this is one of the YA series that has held up over time. Like, I don't think there's many that you can say that about. But
like I would have gripes giving this to someone younger right now. In terms of like, so many other older YA series that have problematic elements in them.
Like my shop that I work at has like, it's quite like it does have some newer YA titles, which I do try and push, but like it's a bit outdated in that we still have like quite a lot of older YA series in there, and like whenever people buy them. I'm like, no. Obviously you can't, like, you just gotta let people buy what they buy, but like I always try and recommend like the newer stuff just because I know it will be better in terms of like representation and relationships and everything. But I mean, we don't stock Graceling, but if we did, then I would recommend it. And maybe I should get them to stock Graceling. I'm gonna email my, not now because it's Christmas, but like after Christmas. Email my stock lady, like, so.
Yeah, I think especially since a new book,
since the new one's coming out, and there's going to be. Well, I'm thinking we may get it in like when the reissues come in, like that might be a thing. So
yeah,
we'll see. But I'll have a thing because we're allowed to do that. We're allowed to request books, which I sometimes take a bit. Like I send like a long email. She must hate me.
If you have the power, like, go for it.
I didn't realize I had the power for ages, and then I remember I was like, when I got to my shop, there was like basically like no, well, like the queer YA we had was all like written by like white straight women, and I was like, no. So like I basically just said to my manager, I was like, can I please request some but actually queer people? And he was like, yeah, do what you want. And I was like, great. So and it worked, like it sold, so
that's good. That's great.
Sorry, that was a tangent.
No, it's fine.
Do we have anything else we want to talk about before we wrap up?
I think not.
We're good?
I'm excited.
Yeah, I think we're good.
Yeah, I'm excited. Okay, so that was our discussion of where's the book again? Graceling by Kristen Cashore. We are reading this month, December, we're reading Fire, which is the second book. I don't have a copy to hand, but it's called Fire. And we're going to be having the live show for that on Nidhi's channel. And I'm going to have everyone linked down below. That is going to happen on, I think, is it the 3rd of January we're doing?
I think so.
Yeah, the 3rd
I'm not
of
sure,
January.
I think so.
I think it's another Sunday. It's the 3rd of January at, again, 6 p.m. GMT, 1 p.m. EST, etc. So we'll be talking about the second book, and we hope you can join us. Do you guys have anything you want to plug before we go? Any videos or anything?
No. Just thank you for having us and for being a part of this. Thank you, the three of you, for being a part of this.
That's okay.
And thanks to everyone that was watching. Yeah.
Yeah. No, this was super fun. I'm so glad I started reading the series because it's really good, and I'm excited to continue.
Me too. Yeah. Super fun discussing with all you guys. So
yeah. Okay, we're gonna finish now.
Yeah.
We'll finish off now, but yeah, we hope we can see you all next month. Bye.